and welcome to Ted Lasso post-match, the officially unofficial official podcast
Nailed it.
Of Ted Lasso, where I'm Vinny and I'm joined by my good friend Aidan from
Hello.
Australia,
Hi.
and we are reviewing the latest season of Ted Lasso as it comes out every week.
Yeah, very well said. And at the end of every episode, we crown an MVP, a most valuable player.
Yep.
Which is the character who has done the most, who has just accomplished the most. Sometimes if they're extra funny, maybe then they can be the MVP. But like most of the time, it's whoever sort of accomplishes the most, right?
Accomplishes accomplishes the most or has the most development in one episode.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Today's episode is We'll
doing?
Never Have Paris. Oh, I'm good. Sorry, I forgot that we should say how are we, and
we didn't do
that. It's not like we've been talking for 15 minutes before we hit the record button.
That's an exaggeration.
Okay, 10. So but I'm good. Vinny, how are you?
I am good.
Yeah.
Carry on. Back to Ted Lasso.
This is the episode is We'll Never Have Paris, which automatically is a very sad title. It's I guess broadly speaking, for me, it's an episode about not letting your past kind of get you down, right? You've got, obviously that's a big thing in Ted's arc in this, and then you also have stuff with Keely where it's things that she's done in the past. She's finding it in herself not to sort of look down on things she's done in the past and to embrace that and be like, those are decisions that I made.
Yep.
And I think Nate's lack of love in his past and maybe his difficult relationship with his parents is why he's struggling to why he was desperate to put a label on his relationship with Jade. Yeah. So what did you think?
I really like this episode. I think I probably wrote the most notes for this episode than I have throughout any episode.
Wow, okay.
In the season. But then thinking about it, after I've watched it, I don't really know why. I just got a lot out of it. I got a lot out of this episode for some reason.
Fair. It's a pretty simple episode, which I kind of welcome. Yeah. Like it's following the trend of previous episodes where there's like a few different stories going on, but they do what some episodes haven't done too well, which is tie it together with the same theme as the other storylines. And then another thing
I will say that no, you go.
All I was going to say is like I think I used this analogy the other week. I think every episode kind of feels like a clown car with one too many clowns in it or something. I read that analogy somewhere online, so I'm stealing that from somewhere. But this episode for me, it stuck to an A, B, and C plot, which is exactly what you need for like a 45-minute to an hour comedy. Beyond that, you get too many characters, and I feel like we've had D and E plots in some episodes so far this season, which is just a bit unnecessary. You go. What were you going to
say? Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold. I thought that, with what we said before, like there's, previous episodes have had a lot to juggle, and I think it was last week in particular, some of the storylines felt like the Nate storyline. We had it, but it didn't feel part of the show.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that this week's episode did a really good job at making it all feel very coherent and work together, just by simply having Ted interact with Nate at West Ham, tied in the Nate storyline.
Definitely.
And then having Roy and Jamie interact with Keely, tied in the Keely storyline. And it just felt more unison. Yeah. It felt like the team was back together a little bit.
On that, there's a lot of small things in the writing. We always say this, Ted Lasso is such a well-written show, that there's some really clever things in the writing with just like the order of scenes. Like you have a scene of, I think it's Keely and Jack waking up is one of the starts early in one of the scenes early in the episode. And then following that, you have a Nate and Jade scene waking up in bed. And just having those scenes, even though they're kind of a similar vibe of a scene, it's so much easier for the audience to follow, because instead of setting up a whole new thing where it's like, okay, this person's now off doing this thing, it's just a natural transition between scenes. These guys are just in the same point of their day. There's lots of little things like that I think just help to make this episode really cohesive. It's a really neat episode, I think. It's really tidy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why I really, really enjoyed it. Like, I feel like I got a lot out of the story, and I got a lot from the characters. There wasn't too much going on, and it was just really enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. So, like we said, there's sort of an A, B, and a C plot in it. So, I guess the A plot, as we sort of predicted, the star of today's episode is Keely, and I guess broadly speaking, her plot is to do with her nude slash like a video that she sent to, it turns out, Jamie in the past.
Yep.
Goes viral along with a lot of other celebrities have their stuff leaked, and it's sort of an episode where her and Jack's relationship really gets tested. And yeah, so Jack is at first, she comes off really considerate and kind about it, and I think she genuinely does feel bad for what's happened to Keely, but it becomes clear that she sort of does blame Keely a little bit for it, right?
Yeah, I read it as that Jack was almost a bit embarrassed about Keely.
Yeah.
Throughout this episode, there's a few like little bits that I think indicate that, like when they're at the mini golf course and when she cancels her plans because she doesn't want Keely there. I'm like, she's a bit embarrassed by this scandal that Keely hasn't even gotten herself involved in. Like, she was hacked; it's not her fault.
Yeah.
Yet Jack was blaming her and like a bit embarrassed about her. That's sort of what I got from the story.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is really tidy about this episode is with a lot of the side characters, they still advance their plots forward through the Keely plot. So we get a bit of the Isaac and Colin situation, which we'll touch on in a second. And we also have Roy and Jamie having, Roy making a terrible move. You can see where he's you can see why he fucked up, but it was just totally the wrong thing to say, where he asked Keely who was the video for.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to talk on that for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw something online about the sort of the Roy, mess up, and I think obviously it was ill-timed what he said, but I saw some people maybe saying that it was a bit, that's Roy being a bit insecure or whatever. When actually, yeah, but I also think it's partly that Roy wants to help in some way, and like if he found out who it was, that might make him feel like he can do something about it.
Yeah,
because I don't think Roy would ever, he's a bit insecure when it comes to Keely, because obviously like he loves her, but he'd never want to cause any malice towards her. He's not gonna stand there and give her aggro for sending a video not to him,
yeah.
Whereas that's exactly what Jack pretty much did.
Yeah. We see Jack's dad and Jack's dad's lawyer team or whatever, they try and get Keely to make a formal apology about it, but Keely's pretty firm, and throughout the episode she sort of comes to this understanding within herself that it's not something that she should feel regretful of or feel shame for doing, because it's her body, she can do whatever she wants with it. So her, once again, it's another sort of step in Keely standing up for herself and just becoming the boss ass bitch Keely that we know she's on the brink of becoming.
Yeah, defo. And I really appreciated the theme of Keely's story in this episode, the fact that this does happen quite a lot.
Yeah.
Not only to celebs, but like, just like even Keely mentions it back when she was in school, it happened to her. And I just think that it's really nice for Keely to stand up for herself and say, like, this is not my fault. She was like, yeah, I made the video, I took the photos, but she was like, it's not my fault they got leaked.
Definitely.
She was like, I don't regret making them. And I think that that's a really important thing, because there's nothing wrong in doing anything like that. But then like people come in and sort of invade your privacy and leak them, and that's when it becomes an issue. But she should never feel shame for doing it in the first place.
Yep.
And I think that it's a really nice message and a really nice way to paint Keely's character, is the fact that she's not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
And it's a nice contrast against Jack, who is ashamed of it, and Jack's not even involved in it.
Yeah.
But she's sort of ashamed of it for Keely.
For a lot of the episode, I thought that it was a video that Keely had made for Jack in the past. And then it was actually only, I think, towards the end of the episode where I realized that it wasn't for Jack. And then obviously Jamie rocks up at the end, and that clears that up. But it made that scene with Roy even more interesting for me. And I think Roy still came at it from this angle where he thought it might have been for his for Keely's new partner, and he knew that Keely had a girlfriend. So it was that insecurity thing of being like, oh, so who are you seeing? That's sort of how I took that scene a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, is an interesting way of looking at it. Let's talk about the boys in the locker room, because they, I think, brought up some good arguments. I think it's always good to have like a mixed group that question each other, because that's sort of like, sometimes you talk to your parents about things that are a little bit outdated, and it's sort of that retaliation of, that debate, basically. What did you think of the locker room scene?
I liked the locker room scene. What did I write? Yeah, I liked the locker room scene. I liked that, Roy is there sort of in the locker room. He's not getting involved. He's just doing his coaching business on the whiteboard or whatever. And you've got sort of like Jamie and Sam. And what I really liked about the locker room scene is Isaac. And I did actually note down that I thought he was a really good captain for Richmond, because the fact that he tells him, he's like, no, delete it all, like, because he's like, we could get hacked, those photos can get hacked, they can ruin those girls' lives. So he's like, delete everything. And I think that's a really good move as a captain to do, like the fact that he makes the whole team do it. But obviously then we get repercussions from that with Colin, and I don't know where that's going to go. I don't know.
I'm very curious
what the writers are going to do.
Yeah, it was another thing where I think it was like naturally they used the Keely plot just to advance another story, which is obviously going to be Colin's coming out story. It just felt really natural and tidy. I think it was so Isaac coming up to Colin and being like, "Come on, bro, delete off your phone." I knew instantly where it was going. Like the moment Colin sat down, and for Ted Lasso, you might not notice this stuff as much, Vinny, but it's a very like locked off show. It's a lot of cameras are like on tripods or steady cams. Everything's quite smooth. It's that Apple TV, Apple trying to be really smooth with everything they do, But the moment Isaac came storming out, it went like extreme shaky cam, which I think is something that we've like rarely seen in Ted Lasso in the past. And the moment that happened, I was like, this ain't gonna go down well. They're pulling out the shaky cam stops. Here we go. And Isaac sees I assume the mail nudes that would have been on Colin's phone. And it's unclear where Isaac sits of it, because he kind of just hands him back the phone and storms off. Where do you think that's going?
So what I'd like, and what I've seen a couple of people write on Twitter and everything like that, is that sort of I'm hoping that Isaac is more, because he hands the phone back to Colin, he walks off. Isaac's very, resting bitch face anyway. Like he always looks grumpy.
Yeah.
What I'm sort of hoping is, because obviously they are pushing towards towards the end of this episode, they're playing with, how does Isaac feel? How's Isaac taking it? Is he gonna go one way? Is he gonna go the other way?
Yeah.
But what I'm hoping they do, because I quite like Isaac as a character, like I said, and I think he is a good captain for the team. I'm hoping that it's more he's angry that Colin couldn't tell him.
Yeah, I hope that's exactly what I think.
Yeah, because obviously they're quite close pals as well over the last sort of 3 seasons. So that's what I'm hoping. It's more like I'm just mad you couldn't tell me sort of thing. Like, Why'd you keep it a secret? Everything like that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Because
Because Isaac does seem pretty chill with things.
exactly,
So
and the way he was standing up in the locker room just shows that his morals kind of
yeah,
are in the right place when it comes to. I know that there's slightly different debates, but he obviously has his head switched on, and he's very very present with these matters. So I think it would be out of character to then do like a switcheroo with him. I hope what you're saying is right. That's exactly how I took the scene. So
that's what I'm hoping. But obviously, Ted Lasso writers can really like throw spanners in now and then. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that's not what they do. I'm hoping they do what we predict.
This once, please just do what we want, because
Please.
I don't want Isaac to come off as a bad guy.
No, me neither.
Okay. So in the end, Jack, like we said, Jack and Keely end up splitting, and then Jamie rocks up in the morning, and he apologizes. We find out that nudes are from him. Keely doesn't blame him, but I think it's a good contrast between how Roy handled the situation and how Jamie handled the situation, because Roy obviously
I agree.
just had a little bit of jealousy about it, and they are different situations because Jamie knows that it was leaked from him, so he feels more guilty about it. But it also just shows that Jamie has come a long way and is really mature, and at this point maybe slightly more mature than Roy is.
Yeah, and I think that they really highlight that sort of they're comparing Jamie and Roy in this episode. Like obviously because the Roy and Keely interaction is quite early on.
Yeah.
And doesn't go particularly smoothly. And then the Jamie and Keely interaction is towards the end of the episode. And I saw something online as well that said, you know, obviously Roy is always in black, that's his color, and he had like black top on and a black jacket, but Jamie was in all white as well.
Yeah, okay.
And there's just like,
these guys are clever.
Yes, subtle little, I don't know where they're going to go with it. I don't think that they're going to push Keely and Jamie to get back together, not after Jamie's relationship has developed with Roy.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of this episode, I really don't know where we stand with anything in terms of those three.
We're definitely coming to the pointy end of the stick with a lot of the characters at the moment.
Yeah.
So we can see that there's going to be conflict over the next couple of episodes. We've got 4 episodes left. And so you can really tell that it's all going to come together soon. I'm not ready for that because that's going to be so heartbreaking, seeing how these 3 characters that have grown so much into themselves over the show and changed so much, and seeing them sort of go against each other. I'm with you. I think Keely's going to end up with Roy, and I have a feeling that maybe over the next couple of episodes she might give Jamie a shot, but maybe realize that they do work better as friends and she needs someone like Roy.
I think that with Jamie's character development in this season in particular, but also over the course of the show, I do think it'd be slightly out of character for Jamie to get back with Keely now that he's really built this good relationship with Roy. You know, like he really, in the Amsterdam episode, him and Roy had sort of the best time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Jamie would realize that if the opportunity came up to get back with Keely, that would jeopardize his friendship with Roy. And I don't think Jamie would do that.
I think so. I think it's one of those things that, you know, like we said before, you test these characters. The big thing to end any show or any movie is in the final act, you test them on what they've learned. And this is going to be the ultimate test for Jamie, I think. And it's going to be the ultimate test for all 3 of these characters, like as to how Jamie handles it, having Roy in his pocket now, but then also like how Roy would handle a situation with how far he's come. Like it's really going to test everyone involved. And yeah, I really love that. Do you have any other points on the Keely story today?
I'm just reading my notes. No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our B plot, which I'd say is Ted this week.
Yeah.
Which is, so Ted's sort of looking after Henry because his ex-wife Michelle and Dr. Jacobs, who he must insist on calling Dr. Jacobs, They bring Henry with them to London. It starts in the pub, and it turns off that they're going to go off on a surprise trip to Paris, which Ted immediately thinks these guys are getting engaged. They're and I think this was a really good plot, and I think it was a good storyline for Ted that has been a long time coming, because once again, like we said, it's like not letting. I think this is pretty much exactly how Rebecca says at the end, like, don't let your yesterdays define your today.
Yeah.
And Ted has a great line there where he's like, I don't think they're playing yesterday, because it's like being on. So good. Lol, the Beatles. Yeah. So yeah, what did you think of this plot line?
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel a little bit like we were regressing a bit with Ted, because I think a few episodes ago he made like a breakthrough with his almost jealousy towards Dr. Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was, he'd accepted it, and I felt like it was moving forward. And then in this episode, like, but I think that's natural at the same time. But I think that he saw them obviously in person together.
Yeah.
And then it sort of took him aback, and then he's like, oh, maybe I'm not okay with this. It's made me uncomfortable. He starts sort of spiraling and overthinking.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, he has like a couple chats with the Diamond Dogs, and has chats with Rebecca and chats with
Diamond
Beard.
Dogs.
And I think that really like sorts him out a little bit. But I do think it was like a natural sort of development to Ted's character and Ted's story.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like how it starts compared to how it ends, when in that final frame of him, he seems very calm and okay with things.
Yeah. It was like he sort of had a breakthrough in past episodes about, being like, okay, these guys are together now. But this episode was sort of him not letting that define him. Like just no longer basing his decisions off of that relationship. Him being like, we'd never have a Paris or whatever it is, whatever that conversation was he had with Rebecca in the middle. Like, I think this sort of matured him a little bit in that way. So we have a Diamond Dogs meeting where Trent gets inaugurate. What's the word? He becomes a Diamond Dog, basically.
Yeah.
There's a word that's evading me here, but he becomes a Diamond Dog, which I think is really great. And I love how he's like kind of like a yappy dog.
Yeah.
He's like,
he's almost like a puppy.
He is a puppy. He's the Diamond Puppy. And Roy, man, in episodes, I mean, in every episode, Roy's absolutely killing it this season. Like, if he's just there for comedic liners, like, they are so funny. His little one-liners, like, fuck off, storms out.
Yeah, because Roy didn't do too much in this episode, but I still appreciated him being in it.
Yeah, he only sort of had one kind of character-based scene, which I think was good. But yeah, all of his other parts were just so funny. So good. Yeah, okay. So in the end, Ted convinced Rebecca to get a PI to watch over them. Which does she ever actually do? Because we don't hear what happened. Do we? Am I dumb?
I don't know, because at the end she says, like, call me, I have news.
Yeah.
But she doesn't tell him.
Yeah.
So I think what I got from it is that she did do it, but instead of giving him the news, she sort of gave him that little pep talk.
Yeah. So why do you care?
Yeah.
That final scene in the pub, though, like the moment that there was like this moment of anticipation where May was handing out the beers, and I mean, it was really funny when she was refusing to give Henry the milk, and then she gave it to him and stuff. But it's like cross-cutting between Ted talking to Rebecca and the beers coming out and this guy singing, and I was like, something's gonna happen here. I was genuinely like, is someone like not gonna get shot, but like, is there gonna be like some big thing?
I will say, so I will say, being a sort of music fan and everything like that, when they were sat there, at the table, and the guy started singing "Hey Jude," in the background, just started. I thought, this is very clever using Hey Jude, because of Hey Jude's story behind it, the fact that Paul McCartney wrote it about John Lennon's son.
Right.
And I was thinking that because I'd already known that story. And the fact that Beard then tells it to Henry, I thought it was done on purpose.
It is.
Because I'd picked up on it and I was like, very clever use of Hey Jude. And then obviously it is done on purpose, and like he explains the story to Henry.
Very clever.
Yeah, and then it is just wholesome when everyone starts singing the na 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 na.
Of course, Beard is like, hey, Jude, like doing the really extra parts.
Yeah, perfect for Beard.
Yeah. And I love just the way it played throughout the song. And he's like, yeah, but the thing about it is it gets, I don't think he exactly says this, but he basically says like, but the song, it gets better. And then that's when it all like lifts up. And it's obviously
he's like,
an analogy
the best bit about this song. And then Henry's like, what? And he's like, this.
Yeah. And it's a thing of like, like this stuff, it might be shit for Henry at the moment, but it is going to get a whole lot better soon,
says,
you know?
Yeah, because obviously like the lyrics of Hey Jude is like, you take a sad song and make it better. And he sort of says that, he reiterates that to Henry.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, like things may be hard, but you have the power to make it better. And Henry was like, yeah.
Yeah, I do. Also, glad that you're on this, Vinny, because I referred to the song as Let Me Be before, which I know definitely is not right. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. But
oh yeah, I picked up on that, but I just let it go past.
Like, I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm not. I'm a very big Beatles fan, so I'm pissed off at myself for doing that. But
well, I saw Paul McCartney last year, and Hey Jude was magical live, especially the na 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 nas. So, you know, just a street corner of random singing it is that does happen in the UK. So
the UK is a strange place because Australia is nothing like that.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time, but that can happen, and it's magical. It is magical. Just a bunch of strangers singing. But I really enjoyed Rebecca's chat over the phone to Ted.
Yep.
You know, she sort of gives him basically a kick up the arse, and she's like, you need to stop. You need to, and she's like, go sing Hey Jude with your son. Live in the moment. Like, stop stressing. That's basically like what she says to him.
Yeah.
And I think that really calms Ted down, and he's like, you're right.
Yeah.
And he just sort of, he settles. And I loved it. I loved that whole scene.
I think that shows good progression of Rebecca just being slightly ahead of Ted, where, I think Ted's divorce is way more recent than Rebecca and Rupert's divorce. They are kind of close timing wise, but Rebecca's a little bit further on in that journey. And it just showed her being that one step ahead, where she's like, stop letting all that stuff like interrupt the moments that you should be having right now.
Yeah.
So that was
obviously like that's really magical. Affected her life. Like, she spent, especially the last sort of 3 seasons that we've seen her, her character development. Again, like, she's not in this episode a lot, but that just really shows her development as well, because back in series 1, she is doing everything, in spite of Rupert.
Yeah, she wants to run Richmond into the ground because of him.
Yeah, she's doing everything to spite him and everything to try and be better than him, and when in actual fact she wasn't living in the moment. So in this episode, to say like, look, just stop and just enjoy your time that you're having, I think that just really shows her character development. And in the same way that some other characters in this episode haven't been in it a lot, but I still think that was such a vital part going forward.
Yeah. Big brain moment. So we said Rebecca's a little bit more advanced than when Ted is right now with the divorce. Do you remember a moment where for the first time you saw Rebecca kind of break free and Rebecca just loosen up? The first time you saw Rebecca not held holding on to those emotions of Rupert and her anger and stuff. The first time she just sort of had fun in the show.
Um,
Let it go.
no.
Let it
Oh,
go.
The Liverpool. That was
Her
what I was thinking.
her singing a song in karaoke. So I think that's a genuine intentional thing where it's like,
Yeah, take a sad song.
yeah, so she did Let It Go. She went bananas with Let It Go, and that was her moment of lifting that weight of Rupert off of her shoulders. And now this is Ted catching up to where she was then, and he's letting that stuff go and using
Yeah.
the Beatles song and singing to the Beatles song.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Ted Lasso writers are just next level, aren't they?
They're fucking clever, Vinny.
I also like to point out just a teeny, teeny, tiny detail that you may have missed that I picked up on.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to write that down. It's right at the beginning of the episode. In the pub, Ted in the pub. So like really, really early on, Henry asks for some change. Ted goes into his pocket, gets those 2 magnets from Richmond, and he gets out a green matchbook. And, you know, I don't know where they're going with it. My
Ted
brother
Becker
disagrees.
is on.
My brother doesn't think that they're going to go for that. But, you know, seeing that, I think maybe they're putting very, very, very little details, little hints in each week. I don't know, but I just thought it was worth mentioning.
I think Ted Becker is pretty much confirmed at this point, even though like romantically they've not showed any of that in the show yet. But I think all the little things that are in there, and I can't remember the book from last week that they had, and we'd sort of broken down that book and how
Sense and
that
Sensibility,
Sense and Sensibility, and how that connects to the current plot, and then stuff that hadn't happened when we were talking about this last week. We were like, oh, Jack, and there's going to be a workplace scandal between Jack and Keely, and all that stuff has come into fruition. So it's like, just looking at that, I just think that all this stuff sort of confirms it now, and that matchbook I think is another small detail in that direction.
Yeah, I just think they're putting in a lot of little details. Like that was really the only hint towards it in this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just worth mentioning.
Yeah.
And see
No,
if it
I'm
comes
glad you
back.
did.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did. It'll come back for sure. Our final sort of plot point for this episode, our C plot, if you will, is a much smaller plot, which was nice, and it was just Nate, him sort of figuring out where him and Jade are, making those next moves together. We have them waking up in the morning, which, by the way, something about that scene just looked really beautiful for me. Their bedroom scene, like it had like this nice yellow glow, and I was like, man, the cinematography is really nice. He desperately wants to put a name on what they are.
Yeah.
And so he forms what are they called? They are the Love Hounds. his West Ham boys, and he's like, yeah, this is just the boys, we're gonna just spitball things. And one of them's like, can we talk about my aging parents or something?
And can I just say, why the fuck did he think that Rupert was gonna come to that?
I know. It's so funny in like reverse as well, because it's like you find out that Rupert's not coming, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that's about. But then the moment you hear like that it's the Love Hounds, it's so funny thinking back to the fact that Rupert was supposed to be there.
Yeah, the fact that Nate thought Rupert will want to be here. Like,
one of the boys.
No.
It's really
silly.
Good. It's a funny scene, and to be honest, it's I think one of the most important scenes in this episode, because it really shows where Nate is at. Like, he's missing that genuine connection with the people he works with.
Yeah.
And him seeing, we didn't really talk on this, that Ted and Henry and Beard go to the West Ham game, and he saw them, he didn't really know how to react. And then later in the episodes, he gets a message from Rupert, and he's like, I'm sorry they were there. It won't happen again. And at first, he was going to write a message where he was like, don't worry. It was kind of funny, which I think is still a bit of like a front. Like, it wasn't funny to him. I think it was just like, that was like his light-hearted way of saying it. But then he was sort of like, no, I have to be tough to Rupert. And he said, yeah, don't make it happen again or whatever. Yeah, that stuff's very interesting.
Yeah, the Love Hounds scene, I thought, especially then followed shortly by Ted, Beard, and Henry going to see West Ham.
Yep.
I particularly enjoyed Beard being in his Richmond uniform at
and
West Ham.
he's just he stood like this the whole time.
I really enjoyed that.
The old 2-finger salute.
But I think, they're waving at Nate, and Ted's like, Ted's not angry about anything. He's just like, it's what he wanted to do.
He's bought his kid a West Ham jumper, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. I think that this episode really, even though we said like it's a C plot, doesn't have too much going on. But I do think that it did a good job in sort of showing that Nate is really trying to fill a void that leaving Richmond left him with.
Definitely.
He's left Richmond. He'd left that really nice sort of work environment with a really like solid team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now that Jade's probably making him a bit more comfortable with his actual true self, he wants to bring that back to his workplace a bit.
Yeah.
But obviously that can't happen at West Ham. And I think that's what he's struggling with. And that's what we're going to see going forward. Like, there isn't a good sort of team dynamic at West Ham.
Yeah.
Because it's all like regimented. And I think that's what Nate is struggling to fill at the moment.
Definitely. And I think Jade kind of tied it all together at the end when she refers to him as as her boyfriend. She says like, I think, was he like looking at some of the reports on Richmond or something at the time, or of Ted being there on his phone?
Yeah.
And he's a little bit like mad about it. And she's like, I like it when my boyfriend's happy. She makes him laugh and stuff. And then that's another thing where it's like Nate is letting these things of the past sort of play on his mind and ruin his mood, whereas he needs to be present and be in the moment. And maybe that will lead to him realizing that he needs that. He needs the fun moments that matter. And I don't think West Ham's going to provide that for him, And just to finish off there, I think Jade and Nate, I think they all already, like from last week, came off as like an opposites attract kind of thing, and I could already tell it was working. But seeing how good these guys are at like flirting and just being really cute together, I genuinely like spoke to the screen when that happened. I was like, "Oh fuck, you're good, Ted Lasso," because I was just like, "This is amazing!" Like the performances are so great mixed with the dialogue. It was just a really sweet ending. What did you think?
Yeah, I really liked it. The Nate story was just enough. Like, it wasn't too much that it felt out of place, but it wasn't too little that I thought, what's the point in this? Like, it was very well balanced. I thought the episode was really well balanced on the whole. I really liked seeing a bit more of Nate with Jade. I really like Jade
which is cool,
being a character. I think that, her introduction is really going to move the plot forward, sort of in a not firsthand, like she's not going to be there at the forefront, but I think she's going to just help move Nate's character along, which is obviously going to move the rest of the plot along. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I'm intrigued to see where it goes, because obviously, like you said, we've got 4 episodes left. Do I think they're going to be sunshine and rainbows for 4 episodes? No, I do not. I think there's going to be some sort of, like you said, conflict. I think maybe Jade will see a side of Nate she doesn't like.
Yeah.
And he'll have to sort of pick, basically. He'll have to pick West Ham Nate, or he'll have to pick Richmond Nate. He can't be both.
Yeah, I think so. I think West Ham might test him, and maybe he has to like commit to a West Ham thing that's gonna get in the way of something with him and Jade or something like that. And she'll sort of be like, but like, why are you doing this for this job that doesn't even make you happy? Like, you don't like these people there.
She seems very she'll call you, like she won't beat around the bush.
Yeah.
And I think that will really help benefit Nate going forward, because she will call him out.
Which is what she's really good for.
Yeah.
even down to him brushing his teeth and going to the toilet at his neighbor's house or whatever it was, and then she just closed the door in the bathroom and a strong morning piss we can hear.
Exactly. But I think, I think she's going to help move Nate's character forward.
Yep.
Even if she's not directly involved in any plot whatsoever, like even if she's just involved in sort of a Nate side plot, she'll still help move that character forward. So I really like her inclusion.
Yeah, I think she's a good inclusion, and it felt like for a long time Nate was just kind of on his own in his world, and he didn't really have a lot to play with. You had Rupert from time to time, but he's a good character that is used sparsely, which I think is the right decision with Rupert. Yeah. So it's nice to have sort of another main character in Nate's world that you can do a bit of a character arc. I agree. With.
Yeah, and see more sort of interaction with an established character rather than seeing him interact with loads of side characters that you don't care about.
Exactly. That's bloody perfect, Vinny. Well, who is your MVP of this week? Just to round things up, the most viable player of the episode.
Okay, so if you listened to any previous episodes of Ted Lasso post-match, you'll know that I find it very difficult to crown an MVP. I tend to crown one after we've spoken about it. And usually I have like one or two. I find it hard to pick. This week, literally, before the episode finished, I went, that's my MVP. It was so easy.
Yep.
So easy.
I'm
my
the same.
MVP is Rebecca.
Oh, fuck. Okay, never mind. No, okay. Pitch Rebecca as the MVP to me. Mine's Keely.
Okay. I mean, yeah, Keely's fair. But
yeah, mine's Keely for standing up for herself and knowing her worth. But yeah, you go.
Yeah. No, for me, it was that phone call with Ted. I think it really showed how far Rebecca had come. I think it's really going to push the rest of the story going forward along. It's going to push Ted's character forward. It's going to... I don't know. It was such a good scene. Her acting was incredible.
Yep.
And I just loved it. So Rebecca...
That's fair. It was a big thing. It was a big thing that Rebecca did, 100%. For me,
and it stole the scene for me as well.
Yeah, I can see that. I can appreciate it. There's a reason that podcasts are two people, so that you can have two varying opinions. For me, it was just a big... We're not at the climax of Keely's plot yet, but it was a big moment for her, I think, and that's why. Definitely. And just it finally being a sort of Keely-centered episode. We've had episodes where Keely's a big presence, but we've not sort of had like a big Keely episode, but this was a Keely episode. So
and it was...
He gets the crown for me.
Yeah, it was nice to see Keely stand up for herself. Definitely.
You know what?
And get a bit more confident.
You know what the real MVP is then? Women. Women win this episode. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah. Go women. My name has been Aiden Green. This has been...
And I've been Vinny.
There we go. We've been Ted Lasso post-match. Hope you have enjoyed listening, and I hope you are a returning listener. And if you are not, then you should be, and you should follow and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Give us a 5-star review. Anything to plug, Vinny?
Check out all the old episodes.
Yeah, maybe there's some stuff you might have missed.
Yep. And tune in next week for the next episode.
Yep.
Check out Aiden's podcast. Check out my music. Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada boom, bada boom. Vinny's music is Last Order's music. And my podcast is the 50% Doctor Who podcast, where I just drink beers and talk about Doctor Who, which I'm going to do right after this, actually. Yeah, Doctor Who in the background there. How good.
Product placement.
Yeah, well, I've literally got a poster here for us. So there we go. Sweet as. Cool. Yep. Yeah. So make sure you subscribe, and so you'll be back for us next week. I feel like we're getting really good at finding really small shit and good like character things, little small things. Like I think I've enjoyed doing this with you, Vinny. Themes. Yeah, finding like good themes, good through lines, little things like the lighter, little callback things, like when I was talking about the whole pyramid and triangle repetition throughout Ted Lasso last week or whatever it was. I've enjoyed watching us sort of progress in this sort of podcast medium, Vinny. It's been good.
It has been good. It's been a pleasure to do it with you, Aiden. But it's not over yet.
It's not. We got 4 more, and then who knows what happens after that.
we'll see. Let us know.
See. Yeah, yell at us, tell us to do more. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's call it there.
See you next week.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.